I'm Robert Sumwalt, and I'm a board member with the National Transportation Safety Board. The investigator in charge for this accident is Dick Hibskin. Dick is standing right here. He is running the investigation. Today, the investigation continues into the rail accident at Casselton, North Dakota. Today's been a very busy day, and I'd like to describe what it is that we are doing and what we will be doing as the investigation proceeds. We are in the process of developing a detailed timeline of the accident sequence. And with that in mind, our preliminary on-scene examination of the event recorders reveals the following. The grain train was traveling at 28 miles per hour. Then it derailed, went into train-induced emergency braking at the derailment. So it was going 28 miles per hour at the point where it derailed and then went into emergency. The oil train, now yesterday we talked about these event recorders, and I mentioned that the two event recorders in the leading locomotives of the oil train, we have not been able to even get into those locomotives yet, and we're not highly optimistic that we will be able to retrieve usable data due to the damage of the engines, the fact that they're burned up. But we were able to get information from the trailing locomotive, the locomotive at the rear of the train, and we got in and took a look at the event recorder from that, and we found that the speed, the estimated speed at the collision was 42 miles per hour. The rail signals. Investigators have downloaded all relevant train wayside signals. Of course, train tracks have signals alongside them, and so they went to those signals and downloaded the data logs from those signals. They went out to two signals either side of the derailment, and that's about 3 to 5 miles out from the accident site in either location. And they found no anomalies with any of the operation of the signals. The track. Investigators inspected the track that the grain train was traveling on, and they did this in a high rail, which is a vehicle designed to travel on the rails. They did this both in a high rail, and they walked the track to conduct a very detailed inspection of it. They were doing this to check for any anomalies, anything out of the ordinary on the track itself. And they also were doing that to ascertain the point of derailment. And they did, in fact, find the physical evidence denoting the point of derailment of the grain train. This location was at a switch in the rail. So a switch, it's actually a mechanical switch in the rail itself that can be used to switch so the train can go into a different, go to a different rail, a different track. So this switch was aligned for it to go down the track it was proceeding on, but the switch could be used to cause the train to divert into the siding. So all I'm really trying to say is that the point of derailment was at one of the switches. Now, I went out and looked at the switch this morning with our investigative team to get an idea of the location and the physical damage, and so it was just some scraping marks on the side of the rail, as well as we could see an impact mark on one of the rail clips that holds the rail to the cross ties. So we did have some good, solid indications of the point of derailment. As far as the mechanical condition of the trains are concerned, we have located a broken axle. We're in the process of verifying which car it came from based on the identification number that's located on the axle. We've examined it, we've photo documented it, we've tagged it as evidence, and it is available for a detailed metallurgical examination. Hazardous materials. Yesterday I was trying to describe from memory the classification of the hazardous materials, and I misspoke. It's officially classified as UN 1267, and that stands for petroleum crude oil. It's classified as a 3, which means flammable liquid, and it's in a packing group number 1 for this classification, 1267, in a flammable liquid. There are 3 packing groups. Of those 3 packing groups, this packing group 1, has the lowest flash point. As far as the wreckage itself is concerned, all of the tank cars have been removed. The railroad is out there in the process of rebuilding the railroad today. So all of the tank cars have been removed from where they were piled up. They've been moved to a point just adjacent to the tracks. And they've been moved here first so the railroad can rebuild the tracks, but that's one reason, but also so that we can to facilitate our investigators' examination of the rail cars, the damage patterns on the rail cars, tank cars, as well as to allow for the transfer of the product, the remaining product, from these tank cars into trucks, tanker trucks. A lot needs to continue to happen. The interview with the crews will occur tomorrow, we think, and we will continue going through shipping documents. Now, this will be our last on-scene media briefing, and when we finish up, Eric will explain how we will be providing media information from our headquarters in Washington, D.C. But our investigative teams will be here through the weekend. I want to emphasize, we are in the very early stages of the investigation, but even still, we are making good progress. So I just wanted to give you an update on where we were right now, and I'll be glad to take your questions. Yes, sir.
Do you have any idea yet of the time between the derailment and the collision, or if the second train had any message that there was a derailment that occurred?
Do we have any idea between the time between the derailment and the collision? And we're examining that. There are a number of sources that will help us with that, but we believe it to be a very short period of time, not a matter of minutes, but something probably less than a minute. We think it was very quick based on what we believe at this point, but we will be verifying that. That is something that will be a part of the investigation, to come up and correlate all of these data sources to precisely nail down that period of time. There's a question here.
So the cleanup, is that a shorter time than it normally takes, or are you usually really quick?
The cleanup time, is this a shorter cleanup time, or is this about normal? And the cleanup is a function of the railroad itself. So we're here to investigate the accident, and that's what we're doing, but the railroad is in charge of the cleanup. And I've been to several rail accidents, and I can tell you that they are usually amazingly fast. Once we get everything documented, the railroads are in there very quickly to rebuild that track so that they can start running a product across the rail. I've been told that probably by midnight, that track, both of those tracks will be reopened, but I think the best source to confirm that would be the railroad itself. But yeah, this is what they do. They put them back together very quickly. It's amazing to watch them. There's a question here.
So just to clarify, so right now you guys are just rebuilding the railroad, but as far as the cars and any spills or anything of that, it's all been cleaned up?
Has the spill been cleaned up? And that will be a function of the railroad to clean up the spill. I was there today, and there's not a lot of, there's certainly no oil just lying on the ground. Most of it appears to have the product burned, and so whatever contaminated soil is left was in a big pile that will be eventually cleaned up. Again, that will be a function of the owners of the track, so the railroad.
You're still in your preliminary investigation, but are there any clear problems that you've seen, say with the track or maintenance on the train, brakes or engines? Or was everything in good shape so far, or are there clear problems there?
So are there any obvious problems? Well, the signal system, as we indicated, is no anomalies there. The track, no anomalies there. We did identify the point of derailment. We have identified this broken axle that we'll be interested in. We'll want to know, was the axle the cause of the derailment, or was it broken during the derailment? So those are the kinds of things that we will want to be looking at. Are there any other questions?
As I understand, there were like 19 cars involved in the derailment?
How many cars were involved in the derailment? And we reported yesterday that there were 18 cars involved, 18 involved in the derailment.
Okay. Do you know how many of those cars released oil or actually burned?
How many of those cars released oil and actually have burned? And that is something that we were just talking about, and we are in the process of trying to ascertain the exact number. The cars are just all kind of taken off the rail and piled up, and so before we release, there could be some damage underneath the cars that we haven't assessed. So as everybody knows, it's very cold out there, so we've been very deliberately trying to go through and look at each car individually. So we have not confirmed yet the exact number of cars that have breached. One last question. Yes, please.
Sorry.
No.
Any idea yet whether the oil that was carried in those cars, was that properly classified for the type of cars that it was being carried?
Was the product that was carried properly classified? And we want to check the shipping records and make sure of all of that. That will be part of the investigation. I did mention just a minute ago that they were classified as 1267 and 3 and 1, and so if the product was in fact that, then that would be properly classified. But we want to make sure that we do want to make sure that through all the shipping papers that it is properly classified. So I want to thank you all, and Eric will give you some information on how we will release future information. Thank you.
To keep track of the investigation moving forward, we will be issuing written updates, investigative updates from our Washington, D.C. headquarters. To sign up for press releases from our website, you can go to www.ntsb.gov, and above our Twitter feed, you click on a yellow envelope and you could sign up for news releases there. You could also follow us on Twitter @NTSB. Thank you very much.